So the socialization of technology has helped us in developing new products. It has helped us in solving some real-time problems, and that this is what has given us an edge in solving some of the basic problems. So now, when we come into compliance, the basic data set on which any compliant engine will work is a feed to that compliant engine. So as the technology has socialized, what we can do better so that the socialization of data also happens, because the data that gets inputted into an X system, that system might be processing that data, but the analytics of that data in terms of compliance is happening in a Y system, and there can be a scenario that a data movement from X to Y might take some time, and that time is a critical period wherein the fraud has happened. So how we can minimize that time period and move to a process wherein I will say a socialization of data also happens real time with different core systems, be it manufacturing, be it banking, or be it telecommunication. So that's my question.
Yeah, so let me address that before I give it to the panel. What we do is, there is the data input from these various systems and the data output in terms of going back to this, communicating back with the systems in order to, address the operations risks. So what we have done is we have built connectors both on the input side and also built APIs on the output side so that it can go back to those systems and decisions can be made. So we have, addressed both the input and the output side. Any of the panelists would like to add?
Yeah, I can take a shot at it. See, I think you're right in saying that technology has evolved in the last 2 decades. What we're seeing just in the last 2 to 3 years is, companies had this ability to keep spending on infrastructure, right? You invest in this technology, oh wow, now we have a CRM solution. Now you're going to invest in this and you have better production management. And you keep investing and buying different types of systems and keep paying multiple licenses, and necessarily the churn that happens within each of those licenses product don't talk to each other. That being said, what we are now seeing is a lot of cloud-based computing that's happening. And what the cloud-based systems are doing is they're connecting it with the APIs. They have APIs that connect with most generic systems, or they can build one. What that does is gets data from multiple systems that you already have. You don't necessarily need to spend a lot of money in building new technology platforms and doing, other than maybe if you're doing something for internal workflow management. But generally, most of this analysis can be combined with a product like surveillance or others, where this can be handled from the cloud, or such a solution can be implemented within the infrastructure of the company itself. So I think that's where the key lies in being light on your asset and being light on your technology and heavy on your data, rather than being heavy on the technology and light on the data. So I think that's the trend that we are seeing, that's happening in the market.
If you see the problem that we are facing as a bank or any institution, it's not specific to a institution. These are the more generic problem that the industry is facing. If you specifically talk about the banking, if you see the NPAs and the willful defaulters, if you take the case of willful defaulters, so you have these same entities getting facilities from multiple banks, multiple financial institutions. Now, if you see, the banks are also coming and working in tandem with each other. They are forming the consortium. They are sharing their list of willful defaulters, and that there's a common repository. The CIBIL coming into the picture. So all these information are now more or less centrally available, basis which banks are taking those informed decisions, and then they are working with each other so that if any stress in the particular asset, that information is shared within the banking domain, so that the corrective action, or because if a problem happens to institution, I don't think it is going to impact only that bank, because it's kind of a industry where the spread is immediate, and if you do not arrest it at the early stage, probably it could impact the whole industry as such. So I feel the banks are already working in the direction, and that's where there are common databases or the repositories getting built and used by most of the institutions now.
Yeah, so the main aspect is learning. One of the aspects that's been addressed is learning in the form of pooling data into a repository and then learning from it. So that's a consortium from a credit perspective that has been addressed. Similarly, there are things around operational risk where we have an consortium to collect loss related data in terms of its frequency of occurrence, in terms of the actual severity and the impact that occurs as a result of this event occurring, and learning from that. Going forward from an AML perspective, we're doing reporting. But reporting again, when you're doing SAR reporting, what are the amount of details that go into the report? Are we actually reporting to the most granular level in terms of what was the IP address that was used for committing a particular fraud? Possibly that IP address is already currently in use for committing another fraud. So that kind of granular data that needs to be shared. So sharing of data is of key relevance over here, which is something that doesn't go pretty well with most of the bankers, is what we have seen. Bankers are reluctant in sharing data. They feel I don't want to let my data be made available to everybody. So, and the second aspect is in terms of learning, machine learning. We say that one is learning from our experiences, and the machine is also parallelly learning. So, machine learning is then going to be helpful in terms of reducing your false alerts, false positives. It's going to also be able to fine tune scenarios on a real time basis. If it's not going to be able to do that and you're going to wait for something to happen and then fine tune your scenarios, then we are again being in a reactive mode than being in a proactive mode. That's where big data analytics and machine learning could play a vital role.